Hey everybody, thanks for clicking the link and joining us for our second challenge, Faithful in Small Things. Sorry I can't be live tonight, can't be with everybody chatting it up, but I wanted to take some time. I'm excited to share with you this challenge, Faithful in Small Things. So I'm taking a little bit of time away from my other job and hopefully get parked here pretty quick and finish this. Jesus makes us a promise in Matthew chapter 25. He does it in a story called a parable. In Matthew 25, he tells the parable of the talents. He's trying to explain to his disciples what his kingdom looks like, what it looks like to be a part of his kingdom, what it looks like to invest in his kingdom. And this one story about the talents, he is trying to share with them that his kingdom won't be manifested on earth right in front of them at that time, but that his kingdom was an invisible kingdom in the hearts of men. And he's trying to explain that to his disciples, and he does that by telling them a story about a master who's going to go away. The master goes away, and he leaves 3 servants different talents or money. And he gives one servant 5 talents, we'll say $5. And he gives one servant 2 talents, or $2. And then he gives the other servant just $1. And the story goes like this. The servant who had been given $5, he took that, what God had put in front of him, what the master had put in front of him, he took that, he invested it, he took some risk, he stepped out in faith, and he did something with what God, the master, had given him. And he ended up making $5 more. The second servant that had been given $2, he ended up taking his 2, what God had put right in front of him, what the master had put in front of him. And he invested it, he stepped out in faith, he took some risk, and he ended up making $2 more for the master. That third servant, who was just given $1, he ended up taking that $1 and just burying it in the ground. He didn't think he had enough. He didn't think it was worth trying to risk. He didn't think that he could do anything with just $1. He didn't think that could matter to the master's kingdom. He didn't think it mattered, and he didn't think it was enough. And so because of that, he just took his money and he buried it, because he didn't want to lose the amount that he was given. He didn't want to take any risk with that. Well, the master comes back and he says to the guy who he had given $5 to, and he says to that servant, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, $5, and you invested it, you stepped out in faith, you took the risk. Well done." He looks at the servant who had $2, and he took that money and he made $4, and he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You're a part of my kingdom. Step into the joy of your master." And then he looks at the servant who just had $1 and just took it and buried it in the ground. And he says to him, "What happened? Why did you bury this in the ground?" He said, "You were afraid and you were lazy." And he ends up saying something really scary. He tells that third servant who took that $1 and buried it, and he tells him, "You have no place in my kingdom." Now that's pretty alarming. That's pretty scary. And so the lesson for the disciples, the lesson for us, is to be faithful with whatever he's put in front of you. You may be sitting there thinking, "Well, I'm that servant with just $1. He didn't give me the personality. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the right friends to have influence. I don't have the right family. I don't have the right things or the personality to really make a difference in his kingdom." And let me just challenge you. Here's the challenge. Be faithful with whatever he put in front of you. Whatever that is. He's given you a home. He's given you a family. He's given you a church. And he's given you some influence at school. He's made you exactly like you were supposed to be made. So don't take what he's put in front of you, no matter what you think about it. Don't take it and just bury that talent. Don't bury your dollar. Even if you think it's not like somebody else has, or it's not enough, or it's not as much as God has given other people. He made you exactly like He wanted you, and He will use you. It just takes us stepping out, taking some risks, stepping out in faith. And what that might look like for you guys is it might mean you take the risk to step out and reach out to that person at the lunchroom who doesn't have a friend. Maybe some people will think you're crazy for doing it. Or maybe they'll think ill of you because you stepped out and talked to that one person that nobody else wants to talk to. Or maybe for some of you, it's time for you to start sharing your faith. You've got friends who are ready to hear the gospel, and you just don't know if they'll think you're crazy. Step out there, take the risk, make the investment. Use what He's put in front of you. Don't bury your talent. Don't say, it's not enough, I'm not smart enough, I might mess this up. Be faithful with what He's put in front of you. And this is what Jesus will say to that. He says two things to that. I will bless it. Well done, no matter what happens. Here's the cool thing. He tells us at the end of Matthew that when we do this, when we step out, He will always be with us. And Ephesians tells us whatever we do, any investment, whether we're planting seeds, whether we're watering it, spreading the gospel, whatever we do, in any part we play in that, He brings the growth. He will complete it. And so be encouraged that you've been given just enough. You've been given plenty to invest in the kingdom. You've been given plenty. And do not be afraid. Do not be lazy. Be faithful with what He's put in front of you. And the last thing is, here's another aspect of this that I think it's good for your generation and my generation to remember. To be faithful in small things might look like this for you. Maybe you say, I really want God to use me. I want Him to use me in a big way at my school. And maybe that's just not happening, or you're not seeing those opportunities arise. Maybe we need to back up and be faithful with the really small things that He's already put in front of us. Maybe some of you need to be faithful with just being obedient to your parents. Maybe it's being faithful with taking care of what He's given you. Your room, your belongings, your possessions. Taking care of them and obeying your parents and honoring your parents in the home. And maybe when you're faithful with that, He'll set you over much more. So faithful in the small things. Be faithful, take a risk, be diligent, and make the investment in what He's put right in front of you and right in front of me.